issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.
Five African leaders under the regional bloc, Ecowas, will be heading to Mali to see how they can resolve the country's political crisis. The 75-year-old President Keita Abubakar has been in power since 2013. He's now under mounting pressure to resign from his people. Will he step down? And what will be the final resolution on the Malian crisis? These are the issues we're delving into on today's edition of The Agenda. If you'd like to join us, my name is Henry Williams. We'll be back after the break. Poverty, strife, conflict, and corruption. These are common narratives on the continent. But this is another side untold, the side of wealth, riches, and the continent with most blessed resources. Until you change a man's thinking, you cannot change his life. Africa's story has been written by others. We need to own our challenges and solutions and write our stories. Only Africans can build Africa. My name is Henry Williams. Join me on The Agenda on Love War Plus. From Lagos
to London, from Johannesburg
for several years, our economy
to the United States,
identifying houses of worship.
We have all the world covered for you, no matter where you are.
Love with News is at the heart of it all.
I have experience.
We bring you our perspectives of stories behind the story.
The signs given to us for the entry of these things are before us.
Join us.
Join us.
Join us on this station.
All right, great to have you back. You're watching The Agenda. And my name is Henry Williams. I want to thank you for joining us and remind you as well that you can watch us on the go when you log on to our website at www.loveworldplus.tv or go to any of the online stores to download our app, Love World Plus. Now, on today's edition of the show, we take a look at the Malian crisis. 5 West African presidents under the regional bloc, Ecowas, will be in Mali right now to see how they can resolve the crisis that has been stirring in Mali for the past weeks. President Boubacar Keita is facing, according to analysts, his biggest political challenge since coming to power in 2013. Now, opposition politicians and protesters want him to step down, saying his government has failed to address long-running violence by militants linked to Al-Qaeda. Former President Goodluck Jonathan has been in Mali for mediation talks. Now, his appointment was announced by Jean-Claude Cassibrou, head of the West African Economic Bloc, Ecowas. Now, this report tells us more, and we'll be right back. Former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan landed in Bamako Wednesday to lead mediation efforts to find a solution to the crisis in Mali. The country has been hit by ongoing protests calling for the resignation of President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, with recent demonstrations marred by violence and a crackdown by security forces. The former Nigerian president was appointed head of a mediation team acting on behalf of ECOWAS, the West African Regional Bloc.
With your cooperation and the good people of Mali who want to solve the problems, not about individuals, but about the collective interests of the country, I think we'll have a way of resolving the issues. This must be man-made issues.
With the will of the President of the Republic, my will as head of government, the will of the ECOWAS delegates, I am hopeful that this political process will lead us to a solution and a way out of the crisis for the well-being of all the people of Mali.
Meanwhile, opponents of Mali's President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita erected barricades in the capital Bamako on Monday after international mediators failed to resolve a protracted political crisis that has shaken the West African country. The 15-nation Economic Community of West African States completed a mediation mission last Sunday with a list of reform proposals, but the opposition spurned the proposals as it did not address its main demand, that President Boubacar Keita resigns.
ECOWAS must not be an instrument for protecting heads of state. It must be an instrument at the service of the interests of the people. That is what we told them.
The president and the opposition June 5 movement have for weeks been locked in a political standoff, which spiraled into violent clashes earlier this month, leaving 11 dead. But the uncertain conclusion of the mediation has left the path to exiting Mali's impasse uncertain. Mali has been hit by protests that erupted last month demanding Keita's resignation. The international community has been trying to defuse the crisis. All right, that report tells us a lot about what is happening in Mali recently. Well, we understand that ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, has sent representatives to wade into the crisis that has been brewing in Mali for some time now. Well, I'd like to bring my guest in at this point. I'd like to welcome Nnamdi Abana. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Well, Nnamdi Abana is an African affairs analyst and also a columnist on African issues. Well, Nnamdi, looking at what is happening in Mali, it does give you a kind of unsettled feeling about the crises that always erupt on the African continent. We still have a challenge and how to quell these issues, and they always start most of the time from the political system of elections and all of that.
Yeah, you know, anytime there is a crisis which emanated from, or which emanates from electoral issues, it tends to drag for some time. And one vital point I have to make about what is going on in Mali is the orientation, the political orientation of the people of Mali. You know, apart from the electoral issues, there have been plethora of problems troubling that state. Apart from the electoral issues, they have issues of insecurity, issues of economic underdevelopment. They are accusing the government of zero performance. They also have the issue of insurgency and to a large extent terrorism to deal with. In fact, when after observing what is going on, what has been going on in Mali, you know, I thought I was reading about Nigeria. You know, it's sad that we are having such a situation in Mali. However, the reaction of the people and the opposition is very instructive. It goes a long way to show the political orientation and the political culture, you know, that exists within the polity.
You believe
that is Mali.
You believe they are politically more advanced than Nigeria in terms of political awareness?
Yes, they do. Because in political science, when you're analyzing different political systems and political actors in a particular nation, or when you're doing a comparative analysis between these nations, there are certain indicators that you have to look out for. You have to look out for their political orientation. You look at the political culture, what is prevalent. Then you look at the reaction of the people. You know, are the people participatory, or are they just standing aloof? You know, in the study of political culture, you talk about certain things that are meant to be prevalent. For instance, in Nigeria, we've seen a scenario where people are saying, give them their rights. Yeah. Other nations, when they analyze what is going on in the country, they are telling Nigerians to take the bull by the horn and ensure that the right governance is established. But in the case of Mali, other nations are not telling them, you know, hello, you citizens, you have to be very, very active. You have to be politically aware of what is going on in your country. No, this time around, they are the ones saying, give us, this is our right, and we want to ensure.
They are the ones pushing for it.
Yes, they are the ones pushing. There is no external force being applied. But here in Nigeria, people are docile. I would like to use the term or the description, I don't want to call Nigerians political neophytes, but we sort of have what I'll call a parochial political culture. We've not gotten to the point where it is very effective, where citizen participation is very, very optimal.
Yeah. I think I understand where you're coming from. When you look at Mali and what is happening, if you look at the demands, which we'll look at much later as we go into the discussion, they're not, what Mali is facing is not too much of a departure from what Nigeria is also facing.
Exactly.
And yet the people have risen up to say, look, enough is enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, the question that comes to my mind is, when you look at conflict on the African continent, there's one common denominator, and that is bad elections, bad conduct of elections, the refusal to accept our outcomes. And that's what we see playing out here.
And even the influence of the judiciary by the government.
The influence of the judiciary in power, exactly. Why is that so?
Well, it shows the mindset of the people that are, the mindset of the ruling class, let me put it that way. The sit-tight syndrome is still there, and it is entrenched in the party system. Most of the political parties that we have, that we often refer to as the ruling party, they tend to have an agenda of, perpetuating themselves in power. So they do everything within their power to ensure that they remain relevant and that they remain the key player in the political affairs of the state, which is actually wrong. The party is meant to be a platform which is ideologically driven, where if you are able to convince the masses or the people about your agenda for the nation, then they will vote for you. But if you are not able to convince them, and let's even assume that the political party is the party in power and they are not performing, it is the responsibility of the people to switch or to vote for the alternate party, which is the opposition party. But in Africa, it's really, really unfortunate. We've not seen that playing out. We've seen political actors and political institutions trying to perpetuate themselves in power. Take America, for instance. We often see it's always alternated between the Democrats and the Republicans. If you're a Democrat and if the Democratic president if he doesn't perform optimally, Americans will vote against them, and it's been like that over decades. And that is the beauty of democracy, where the citizens are able to make the choice.
Let's see what the mediators have come in to do. It seems that former President Goodluck Jonathan hasn't been so successful with the mediations going on, because according to the report we get from what's happening, the mediators are saying, according to him, he said that the mediators are calling for a power-sharing government. Now, it says West African mediators are trying to resolve the crisis, are saying they propose a power-sharing government and a new constitutional court following these demonstrations. And former President Goodluck Jonathan has said that Ecowas does not have the power to bring about a leadership change neither does the United Nations either. But this is the best the people can get. They also propose they will not support, the removal of the president, and says Ecowas cannot preside over the removal of an elected president, adding that not even the African Union or the United Nations can do so. And they also say the third thing is that there is another team that is heading to, that is supposed to be in Mali now to boost the talks. What do you think about this?
Yeah, firstly, it is wrong for that particular statement to be put out in the first place, that that ECOWAS is not going to support the removal of the...
What does that mean?
You know, it's really it's a partisan statement, because you are going there as a mediator. So your mind shouldn't even be...
Your
mind shouldn't be the state of your mind shouldn't be made known until you get there. And then during the mediatory process, you can now present the variables. In other words, what Goodluck Jonathan went there to do is actually he went there to tell the opposition leaders, you guys are doing the wrong thing. We don't want you to be attacking the government of the day. So what we expect you to do is to sheath your sword and comply. However...
and play ball.
And play the ball. However, they made a suggestion which was turned down by the opposition. Goodluck Jonathan made a recommendation for government of national unity, whereby most of the officials controlled by the government would be 50%. That's the political appointments.
So like something we saw in Sudan that
which failed, you know. While the opposition and the civil society will control the other 50%. But the people are saying, no way, we are not ready for that. What we want is for the president to step down. And again, if you look at the reasons that they presented cogent reasons apart from the electoral issues that riddled the nation. They presented the issue of insecurity. They presented the issue of corruption and several, they made mention of several issues. Like I said, when you try to analyze what is happening over there in Mali, it is not in any way different from what we are currently experiencing in Nigeria. And the only difference is the reaction. I like the way the Malians are reacting, because...
Some would differ with your statement saying there's no difference. We're looking at the Malian government has tried to, if some would say, respond to the calls by the people, in the sense that they've made moves to actually placate, you know, the cries of the people. One of them was President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita announced the dissolution of the Constitutional Court. You know, that, you know, gave him the power, gave the election results in an attempt to calm the unrest. That's one thing that he did, you know, going forward. He also suggested that a rerun, he agreed to have a rerun take place.
Well, since he took this, of course, these steps they're okay, but you know, he's also trying to play smart. The people are resolute in their request. There's not even a request, a demand. They said that they want him to step down. And again, in every polity, in most political atmosphere or political environment, the person in power plays a very, very crucial role in all the institutions of the state. Okay, we are talking about the dissolution. The next question we should ask is who will reconstitute the body that has been, you know, disbanded, so to speak. It still falls, you know, within the table of the leader of the country. So it is really, really a complicated situation. Right. Even though the mediation is ongoing, but I believe that the opposition will make more demands when the going gets very tough.
All right, they will make more demands. Has the mediation reached a stalemate in Mali? And the man, Mahmoud Dicko, the people's imam, challenging Mali's Keita. What will be the result of this scattered protest, all over Mali, gives a cause for concern. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be looking at more issues coming out of Mali. Don't go away.
From Lagos
to Tokyo, from Dakar to Moscow,
we have all the world covered for you, no matter where you are.
Lover Plus News is at the heart of it all.
The prayers of many saints will be answered this time.
Bring you our perspective of stories behind the story.
So, and the Bible shows us how hyperinflation will set in.
Jesus said, pray that you be counted worthy to escape all these things.
Join us, join us.
Join us on this station.
To freedom is irreversible. We must not allow fear to stand in our way. I have fought against white domination.
Not satisfied, and we will not be satisfied until justice rolls down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream.
we must remember that every one of us has something to give, something to contribute. Only Nigerians can help develop Nigeria. All that we require in our nation for our prosperity, our security, our progress will come from within us. And therefore, each one of us must be ready and willing to be a vital part of it.
All right, great to have you back, and you're still watching The Agenda. Don't forget, you can watch us on the go at www.loveworldplus.tv or go to any of the online stores to download our app, Love World Plus. Don't forget the discussion we've been having, talking about the crisis in Mali and how its actors are looking to mediate it. We've been talking at great length here with my guest, Nnamdi Banai, and yes, we've made quite some progress. At this juncture, wouldn't mind if you can call us and share your views on the matter. And he's posited that this issue in Mali is not far-fetched, from what is happening in Nigeria. If
exactly.
I may put it that way, Nnamdi, you said that right. Now let's look at the demands being made by these demonstrators. They're insisting that the president resigns because he has failed to quell jihadist violence, corruption, and the economic challenges. And the question that's begging is, what about Nigeria?
Yeah, like I noted earlier on, the Malians are more, they have a
political
higher
awareness.
level of political consciousness, political awareness. They've come of age.
They've come full circle here.
Yes, in terms of political participation. They are following what is happening in their country, and they don't believe in armchair criticism. They are not just there in their houses complaining. They have come out to aggregate their demands based on the prevailing circumstances in their society. There is widespread corruption, there is insurgency, acts of terrorism, and just, like I told you, if you do a comparative analysis of what is going on in Mali and in Nigeria, it is a replica.
Okay, let's take a look at the demands being made by Malians to the Malian government. And let's look at the recent demands by Nigerians calling for the removal of the security chiefs, which seems to have fallen on deaf ears. Mali, in response to its demands, in 2019, the Malian government announced the sacking of top military officers and the dissolution of militia a day after the killing of more than 130 people. In Nigeria, we've had countless scores of those killed.
It's amazing that the government of Mali even took some major steps to yield to the demands of the people, because it gets to a frustration point where the people can no longer stomach what the government is doing, and they take to violence, or they take to demonstrations. In political science, it is referred to as the relative deprivation cum aggression theory. In other words, when you deprive people of security, you deprive them of the common necessities of life, they become frustrated. When they become frustrated, and if you don't control or if you don't provide those needs, it now gets to aggression. It's a theory. So what is playing out there is this theory, from deprivation to they are now aggressive, and that is what is playing out. We can see them burning up things, coming out en masse, in the streets. And in Nigeria, in their own case, the government has even responded to an extent by changing the security chiefs. But over here in Nigeria, what is happening? We have the same thing. The Kaduna-Abuja road has become it's become a death trap. Indigenous of Kaduna don't travel by land anymore. They don't use they don't use vehicles. They don't use cars. They don't use trains. You know.
So if you cannot afford to go by road, you might as well forget about it.
Yes, because the bandits are everywhere. They come out en masse. They engage the travelers in a shooting spree, and you know. We've had several human security crises here in Nigeria. You know, even the indigents are affected, coupled with the Boko Haram crisis that we are having in the northeast. Several people are gone. They've killed several people, and it's amazing how our government places zero premium on human life. You know, it seems the loss of life has become a mere announcement of figures. Oh, 300 people were killed. Nobody is moved until we start mentioning 800.
That's really sad.
1,000.
What does it take?
You know, what
does it take for people to reach the level of sensitivity where the people of Mali have reached? Where does it lead? How do people arrive at that political consciousness that you are talking about now?
Yeah, one is through the activities of the civil society groups, an incorruptible civil society group. In Nigeria, we have corruptible civil society groups. Most of the civil society groups that we have are appendages of the government of the day. Some of them are bankrolled by the government of the day. In fact, if not most of them. So how do you now expect them to come out and play the role that they are supposed to play in a democratic society? It's only few, which I may refer to as the lone voice in the wilderness.
Like the likes of Serap?
Yes, like the likes of Serap, then Chidiode and Kalu, and a few others, even the lawyers, even some of the lawyers, the big names that we often hear are compromised to a large extent. So who will mobilize Nigerians to, challenge the status quo? We've been talking, in fact, another difference between what is going on in Kenya and in Nigeria is that the people are holding their president responsible.
I'm talking about
Nigeria has to go
Mali,
Mali. The Nigerians are supposed to go beyond holding the service chiefs responsible. By now, we should be talking about the impeachment of the president over the security lapses, the insecurity that we have in the country. Several people are gone. You talk about the whole of the Northeast. They've killed thousands, the bandits. Now we have the Boko Haram. Meanwhile, before President Buhari emerged as Nigeria's leader, he disparaged Goodluck Jonathan, rubbished his reputation, and he said that once he comes in, that Boko Haram is going to be a thing of the past. But what is happening today? We have Boko Haram. We have, of course, we have the two camps of Boko Haram.
Bandits as well.
Right now we have bandits, and nothing has been done. It took the ingenuity of the southwestern people of Nigeria to come up with a security initiative to check the excesses of these bandits.
When you say nothing has been done, some might argue that you might not be privy to what government is doing but
you see it by results. You see it by the results.
Also cites even the abduction of Leah Sharibu, which the government has stopped talking about, as a very critical indicator.
It's terrible.
That there is a level of insensitivity that has seeped into the system.
We once had the Bring Back Our Girls group. Yes. Then the government, they politicized the Boko Haram issue. They said, oh, we are going to negotiate with them. We're going to get our girls back. What is happening in Nigeria today? The girls are not back. Most of them, they've been married off to the militant, to the terrorists. Some of those girls are now mothers. I mean, it is irresponsible of our government to allow those girls to remain in captivity while everything is being politicized.
Let's go back to the mediation talks. Some have said that probably former President Goodluck Jonathan of Nigeria would have been the best figure to actually wade into this crisis. The likes of retired General Olusegun Obasanjo would have been a better experienced hand to wield in this?
Yes. General Olusegun, former General Olusegun Obasanjo would have been amongst all the former presidents and head of states that we've had in Nigeria. President Olusegun Obasanjo would have been able to mediate between these divergent forces in Mali. Why send Jonathan? Jonathan doesn't have a military background. He has never fought a war.
Because the role of the military in this
dispute
cannot be discounted.
It has to do with human security, and the nation of Mali has been threatened. And from reports, if this situation is not well handled, the terrorists in Mali are going to overrun the nation. So Mali is in a very volatile situation right now. Okay, our President Muhammadu Buhari, sent Jonathan to Mali. What happened? What is the result? There is no result. Stalemate. The people are still saying what they are saying.
A second contingent is being sent.
Being sent by Ecowas.
Yes.
So we are expecting to see what the outcome is going to be. And again, mind you, Nigeria is not leading the delegation. They picked the president of Niger. That's by the side to tell you how irrelevant Nigeria is becoming.
What does that mean? I mean, that is a serious indicator.
Of course, because other people are watching. Nigeria has not been able, we've not been able to contain the problem of insurgency. We've not been able to contain the challenges posed by the Boko Haram terrorists. The other day, a few months back, it was the president of Niger that rounded up the terrorists, executed most of them, and even told Nigeria to send soldiers to the borders to man the Nigerian border. It's a slap on our face. That means that we've really lost our relevance in the community of nations, especially within the West African region, West African sub-region. It's really terrible. Now, when they mention, oh, Niger, the president of Niger is leading the delegation, other countries that will participate they will now mention Ghana, then Nigeria. After all we did for African unity, for the unity of ECOWAS, have you forgotten about the ECOMOG? Exactly. And how we were able to bring peace to several nations in Africa, including Liberia. So things, it's really unfortunate because the presidential office has lost its essence.
Mali's Prime Minister has apologized for the recent killing of protesters by security forces. In an interview, Boubou Cissé said an investigation had begun, but he rejected calls for President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita to step down. Now, the opposition groups are saying standing down over the handling of Mali's long-running violence by armed military groups. They are not letting up on the issue of Ibrahim Boubacar Keita stepping down, even though he has a second term given to him. Do you think there could be a point of compromise here? Is there no other route to take on this matter?
The people are angry. They are very aggressive at this point. And I will say that the president, the leadership of Mali, they got it wrong by unleashing the soldiers on the civilians. Why should we have up to 12 fatalities? In fact, the government underreported the number of deaths. Yes. They came out to give I think they mentioned about, is it 6? They mentioned a different figure, but the opposition came out to mention the accurate figure of the people that they lost. So it is wrong. Why should you unleash the police and the army against the citizens who are protesting? They have the right to freedom of expression. They have the right to protest. So why kill them? Why unleash the forces of the state against, the citizens? So it's going to take some time for them to be placated.
We've seen a lot of that with response of powers of the day, especially on the African continent. The military has become an instrument of oppression.
Yeah.
What do you make of that? Is it time we began to discuss on how to the key role of the military?
There should be a restructuring of the police system. The police system in Africa, they are underfunded. They are underfunded, and they don't have the capacity to actually do the job of policing the state. Then you also look at the issue of corruption, which has ravaged the police force. So these are the issues that the African presidents, these are the issues that they need to critically look into. And again, it is wrong to unleash soldiers on civilians. Soldiers, they are not trained to handle civil issues. So when you bring soldiers into civil issues, all they know how to do is to kill and to destroy. So once you bring them in, many people are going to die. So they have to stick to using the police force.
President Keita is in his 70s, probably 75 years, if I'm correct. Doesn't it tell of the time where we talk about leaders who should have given way for fresh, new lease of life, to new ideas? But we see that happening on the continent. We see in Cameroon as well, leaders leading for almost 30 years, and the numbers go on and on. You talked about the sit-tight mentality.
Yeah.
Isn't that a major concern?
It's a major concern here in Africa. We have African leaders who don't want to separate themselves from power. They want to remain there for life. Look at the case of the late former Zimbabwean president, Robert Mugabe, who spent donkey years in office until he was forcefully removed by the military. You get to Cameroon right now, Paul Biya is still, leading Cameroon, even in old age. In fact, his own situation is worse off because he is the one leading Cameroon, but he's not residing in Cameroon. He's ruling Cameroon from another country. And again, you look at the succession of power in various African states. Now the Cameroonian president he has perfected all the plans to hand over to his son. And Cameroonians are not keeping quiet. That is why right now in Cameroon, we have the northern and the southern Cameroon. The southerners are really, really kicking hard. And in fact, from what is going on now, they may be granted, their independence from the Cameroonian state. That is how serious it has become.
When you look at what's happening in Mali and look at Nigeria, what do you think we can learn as a people from what is happening in Mali?
Okay, from what is happening in Mali, we can learn one or two lessons from the citizens and from the members of the opposition. The members of the opposition are very strong. They are not just after the crumbs from the table of the president, as we see in Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, the opposition will come out and make noise. Once they are settled, they recline back.
That's impressive in the sense that these days, African leaders buy crowds. They buy, pro crowds to actually counter the anti-government.
Nigeria, let's be specific. Let's just say Nigeria. Oh, these people are preparing to hold a protest. The government will send their own sponsored protest to neutralize or to diffuse.
And it becomes violent. And
it becomes violent. But the people are aware of those that are genuine. And again, what we need to start doing is that the citizen involvement. Nigerian citizens should get involved in the political affairs of, not just political affairs, in the whole gamut of the Nigerian society, both the politics, the economics, and everything. Because at the end of the day, it still boils down to power, the use of power to control the affairs of the state. So Nigerians should be more participatory. Then the civil society should divorce themselves from being from the handouts and the crumbs. They should come alive to their responsibility and say no to the government, in power. Look at what is happening in Nigeria. Like I said earlier on, we have the problem of insecurity. The president has refused to change the service chiefs, even when their tenure elapsed a long time ago. Despite that grace, in quotes, the service chiefs, they've not been able to accomplish anything, and the president is still living in. The civil society groups in Nigeria ought to have organized a protest march that will force the president to do the right thing. The members of the National Assembly, you see how playing the ball, how bad it is. Our Senate president came out, including the Speaker of the Nigerian House of Representatives, came out to tell Nigerians that they don't mind being a rubber stamp National Assembly, provided they get whatever they want from the president. I think that it is an irresponsible statement that defeats the essence of the legislature. You are there to act as a check on the executive. But if you now condescend to the level where you become the borrower, the Bible says that the borrower is subject to the lender, then the president dictates the tune. Right now, the National Assembly, they've lost their moral right to make certain demands from the president or to make certain declarations. All the president is going to do to them is to tell them to shut up, because he knows that it's going to settle them.
Okay, let's come back to Mali.
Yeah.
One of the demands of the people, or the reservations of people about the peacekeepers, is that they are making demands that do not actually put the people first.
Yeah.
They say, why should they talk about a power-sharing government that does not work in the interest of the people? ECOWAS should be making mediations that put the people first. How do you put that?
They are exactly right. That is why I said that ECOWAS did not act with wisdom. There are ways to go about these issues, even though you have an agenda that you are pursuing. But you don't just go there and tell a party, look, what you're asking for is not tenable and we're not going to give it to you. Rather, you settle for the crumbs of restructuring some institutions of the state. They are not going to take it.
So what do you see going down in Mali going forward?
Well, the crisis will continue because ECOWAS is not really serious. I expect the AU to step in now. Probably the former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo should lead the AU delegation to Mali to mediate between the warring parties. And in mediating between the two parties, there are subtle ways to placate the members of the opposition by making some promises about the future and how the political development in Mali is going to favor them in future. There has to be a truce between the ruling party and the opposition party. It's just that they've not selected the right person to play the right mediatory role between the government and the opposing forces, rather.
All right, and then Nnamdi Foltz, the delegation being sent to Mali. Did ECOWAS send the right or wrong people? Well, definitely time will tell. One thing is certain, President Keita, who secured a second 5-year term in 2018, but has faced increased opposition over the rising jihadist violence and economic crisis, will have to find a way to placate his people. And will that be him stepping down? We'll only have to wait and see. Well, that's how it's been on the agenda today. I want to thank you for staying with us on today's edition of the show. My name is Henry Williams, and do remember, you can log on to our website at www.loveworldplus.tv to watch us on the go, or go to any of the online stores to download our app, Love World Plus. And until we meet again, do remember the agenda is for Africa by Africans. We'll leave you with this soundbite from former minister in Nigeria, Okonjo Ezekwesili, who says that the mix of African leaders has gone a long way to affect the bad politics being played on the continent. We'll definitely see you same time on the agenda. God bless you and bye-bye.
The young people that are out there are very angry, extremely angry. And they do not in any way differentiate between you, Loretta, me, and the billionaire Jim Ovia. The fact that you have any opportunity at all on the continent means that you are in trouble. So what we therefore must avert our minds to is, how do we expand the opportunities? If you looked at all the sectors of comparative advantage for Africa, why is it that we have failed to take the very tough measures of the kinds of policies that would jumpstart those sectors? That's where the opportunities will come from. But what gets in the way? Bad politics. Our politicians live for themselves. Let's call a spade, not an agricultural implement. We have a problem of politics on our continent. We have a problem of bad leadership on our continent. We should not in any way hide it any further. We must solve this problem ourselves.
Issue on the African scene, the politics of succession in Africa, the crisis of stability and the power. How critical is this?
Police arrested 12 people for the violence in Johannesburg, while 8 others were arrested.